Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys for coming to the illustrious day 2 of the Law and Technology Symposium. My name is Kat Casey. I introduced myself yesterday, but for those that don't know me, I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for a company called Disco. We're an advanced neural networking organization that leverages the cloud to do some heavy lift deep learning in the e-discovery space. But I'm pretty new there. Before that, I ran the global e-discovery practice for Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher. I used to be the national subject matter expert on discovery, KPMG and PwC, and I've got about a decade and a half in this weird space called e-discovery. Why that matters to the folks in the room, especially to the law students, is that the world around us is changing. The way that attorneys, business people, individuals communicate is very digital. And it's only increasing in velocity. If you think about, especially for the law students in the room, what apps have you used today? Have you texted? Have you used WhatsApp? Have you used WeChat? Have you tweeted something, gone on Facebook? If you're doing it, flash forward. Your clients, your future clients, your peers at the law firm are doing that as well. And so if the language today of business is data, is in ones and zeros, how are you going to get the insights that you need to build a case, to tell a story? The volume, velocity, and variety of data today is just exploding. And it's showing no signs of abating, of slowing, of chilling out. And these data sources they're not just a pain in the butt. They're pivotal for you as a practitioner to begin understanding what the heck happened, to build your narrative, to figure out what you're going to say to a regulator. You need to be able to understand not just what are these data sources, but how are people using them? How are the engineers at Uber using something like Waymo, which is ephemeral messaging? The answer, if you look at case law, is to skirt around having any preservation obligation, and they were fined several $million. You need to understand how the people that you're representing are communicating if you want to be a zealous advocate. And as much as we were talking over all of yesterday about whether or not there's this big upcoming transition to a more tech-leveraged practice of law, are there going to be robo-lawyers or cyborgs? Is the world fundamentally changing? I think that's not the question we should be asking. The question we should be asking is, how is the world around us, around each of us, changing? I'm barely a millennial. I'm 37, but my brother's 15 years younger than me. The way he interacts with technology is fundamentally different from how I did. I got my first laptop at 14. I was talking with someone in the audience who got it in 4th grade. He had his first one as soon as he could, shimmy up to a chair, get his hands on a keyboard. What does that mean? It means he's got an increased level of comfort with technology. What's exciting to me for everyone in this room is you're the future, and you're not the future because of where we are. It's not because Harvard Law School, which is a lovely school, but it's because you've seen the nexus of law and technology. You've got some level of interest, not just in, I'm going to be the next great tax lawyer, I'm going to be the next great real estate attorney, but you understand that the application of tech in some way is changing how we practice law. Now why is that? I mean, I think part of it comes down to the volume of data that's out there. We as humans are creating about, 20% of the data. Text, Slack, Skype, email, documents, Excel, all of that standard stuff. And then we have all of this entire other universe of data, unstructured data. A lot of what I'm going to focus on today is discovery. And a lot of people fresh out of law school might not realize e-discovery in particular is going to be a major component of everything you do as an attorney. And it's not just for litigators. It's for someone doing due diligence on an M&A. It's for someone who's dealing with a second request or a CID. It's for people that have a complex government investigation, an internal investigation. Everything from HR to oil and gas to retail has this component where you need to understand what's contained in those ones and zeros, what's contained in that laptop, in that cell phone, in that structured data, in that share file, in that social media, because that helps you tell the story, helps you as an attorney narrate what happened. Richard yesterday, at the beginning of the day, had a great, analogy. He had a picture of the Black & Decker drill, and he said, what is this? The company said, oh, it's a drill. And he said, well, are we selling drills? No, we're selling the screwed-in screw, the hole in the wall. As attorneys, it's important to think about that. What are you selling? It's not, I looked at every single document, I was so thorough, it's perfect. It's, no, I'm creating a narrative that will help defend you, that will help prove your case, that will help communicate to a regulator that, yes, I did, no, I didn't, that will validate a deal. How you do that, how you tell that story, how you find the who, what, when, where, why is what's changed. And it's not only changing because legal technology. I mean, I think it's very sexy. That's why I'm at a crazy advanced AI discovery company. But it's changing because of everything around us. The world is fundamentally changing. And it's not just changing in the practice of law. In fact, I would argue the practice of law has been rather reticent to make the leap. We're a conservative bunch of people. But the world around us is fundamentally changing. And it's not showing any signs of slowing. If we look at just the mobile world, there's millions, 2.2 million apps. These aren't just, Candy Crush. These are fundamental business technology that people are using, and they're bypassing IT in order to engage with. What does this mean to you? All right, say I'm going to be scoping an investigation. Say I'm talking with the GC of a big pharmaceutical company. I can't just say, hey, I know exactly where to look. I need to go in and investigate, understand how people are communicating. How is the business of business being done? It might very well be on Slack. Right? What's Slack? It's a collaboration tool. It's got very messy files. It's got all these different considerations around collection. Now, what does this mean for you as a young, emerging legal practitioner? You need Issue Spot. I would say you don't need to learn to code. That's something I don't do. But you do need to know enough about technology to bring in the big guns, bring in a technology expert, or to at least understand where to look, where to begin the investigation, where to have that conversation. If you want to be a competent resource for clients today and in the future, you need to be able to uncover this key information, the who, the what, the when, where, why that makes a story. And it's much harder to do that in 155 million documents, or in one case I had 86,000 gigabytes, which times several thousand documents, even more than that. It's very hard to do that. Frankly, it's impossible to do it just with brute human force. I had a lot of cases when I was running the global discovery program at Gibson Dunn that were just all the money in the world, multi-billion-dollar fine. If I wanted to throw 1,000 attorneys at it, if I wanted to brute force it, I could, and I still would only get through a fraction of the information. And there was no guarantee I'd find that relevant, needle in this haystack, important information quickly enough to be informed before my meet and confer, to talk with a regulator and maybe avert an investigation. Understanding technology is not nice to have. For new attorneys, for old attorneys, it's mandatory because the world around us is not going back. You can't unring the bell of social media. You can't unring the bell of alternative ways of communicating. Let me tell you, if you're a bad guy, if you're doing nefarious, nasty things, it's not going to be an email. In fact, it's not going to be on written paper. It's going to be in these new and emerging technologies because people think, aha, I'm much, much smarter than the people looking to figure out what I'm doing. I'm using ephemeral messaging, self-destructing messaging. No one's going to know what I'm doing. A good attorney will. So there's a ton of new data sources. It's not important for you to know them all, but it's important for you to know enough to ask the right questions, to bring in the right tools. The world around us is evolving rapidly to bring solutions to you, leveraging AI and neural networking like my company to help you create insights into big, messy, nasty pools of data. But you need to know where to look. And you don't want to necessarily start out with everything. It doesn't make any sense. I had a case a couple years ago where a big bank, front page of the Wall Street Journal, fined $3 billion. There was a cartel club that was spoofing grannies, basically manipulating the market. They were all front page of the Wall Street Journal, big, big trouble. Not my client, thank God, but my client was a similar bank with similar people doing similar things. And so they asked me, can you figure out if our guys are doing it too? Maybe. So what did I do? I went into Bloomberg Chat. That's like the little Slacky, Skypey thing that traders use. It's probably got a sexier way of describing it, but that works for this group. Went in there and I saw, okay, these 5 guys, the cartel club, are talking with these 5 attorneys in my firm. Oh, crap, that's not good. All right, let me see what they're saying in their email. So I narrowed it down to the period of time that the cartel club got in trouble, and I looked in their email. And I saw, 15 emails saying, I manipulated this, I did that. Oh, that's really bad. But I don't know if you know any traders. They're kind of BS artists. They like to blow a lot of smoke up a lot of, So what I did then is I looked in this even tinier set of data and listened to their squawk box. I parsed the audio and I saw what they were saying. And from that, I looked at the actual trades. And you know what I found? They're full of crap. Nothing bad had happened. And I was able to take this story, which could have been realistically 24/7 audio, 6 weeks of email, thousands and thousands of individual Bloomberg messages, 1/8 of it, using technology, triangulating in with all of this information to find insights more quickly. Went to the regulator and I said, here is concrete proof. Yes, they're saying bad things. Yes, they sound like they're doing bad things, but when I look in the hard data, when I look at mens rea, but also what they didn't line up. There's no proof. Guess what? My bank wasn't in the front page of the Wall Street Journal. My bank wasn't fined billions of dollars. My bank is all shiny and squeaky. So data is important. And it's important because there are more and more ways that we're tracking everything about people. There's cases today that turn on an Alexa. I had a major pharmaceutical client that gave Fitbits to every one of their employees. They thought, oh, it's a great idea, get healthy, lower my insurance costs, make everyone a happy-go-lucky person. And then they looked at the big data. And what they saw was, oh my goodness, I can track exactly who's using meth, crack, and heroin based on heart rate spikes. They're in my C-suite. What am I going to do because I didn't have a waiver signed to use this data? You've got to think of that. And there's privacy concerns around all that health information, but it's interesting to think about. I've had cases where Slack is the linchpin. And so as an attorney, as a cutting-edge attorney who thinks about technology, whether you want to start a company, which is great, it's obviously lucrative, or you just want to better serve your clients, understanding data, how people use data, it's not the domain of the dorks. It's the domain of the savvy attorneys to separate and differentiate themselves from their peers, to be a better advocate, to get to insight faster. All of the technology we're seeing today, it's not so much better, faster, cheaper, it's faster. Reducing time to evidence, reducing time to insight. Because the faster you understand, oh my gosh, they actually did it, how do I pivot? Oh my gosh, they didn't do it, how do I pivot? The faster you know key documents, key evidence, you can perhaps guide your conversation in the meet and confer. Or you can proactively settle. A lot of the information today is more about insight sooner, amplifying human decision making. Here's just a couple examples of how data is used. I won't go through them, but the reality is every single practice of law, from big to small, from slip and fall in aggregate to multinational Panama Papers to Bernie Madoff to Hillary Clinton's emails, one, I've touched them all, and two, they've all pivoted on data. And that's not changing. In fact, I would say it's getting pushed down as more and more people use data, meaning it's more and more relevant, meaning it's more and more useful, meaning if you understand technology, you can better advocate for your client. Understanding what tools are out there are important for a couple reasons. So I talk a little bit about Slack because it was the bane of my existence the last 6 months I was at Gibson. I had clients forcing me to use it. When I pulled it out and tried to review it, it looked like that. I don't know if you can read it. I just didn't know what the heck it was. I had millions and millions and millions of pages of that. So I needed to understand what tools could render that like that. I didn't need to know how to do it, but I needed to know who was out there who could help me because the amount of time and money it took to review that was exponentially more than that. So understanding the capability, the limitation, and in fact, even co-innovating with providers out there to help develop solutions for tools that you need is going to help put you ahead as well. And why is this important? There's a lot of cost. And e-discovery is not being talked about nearly enough in law school, but the reality is it is a fundamental aspect of every practice out there. You're going to be doing it. It's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be costly. We want to find better ways to do it. Data's getting bigger, messier, more complicated, and something has to give. And what is that? We can't keep going through every document in a linear way. We can't just say, hey, 500 attorneys, go take those banker boxes, go look in the computer there, click through it for 100 hours a week, hope for the best. Maybe you'll find the needle in the haystack, maybe you won't. Doesn't work. And so that's why I think we're on the precipice of something really interesting. Anyone who's studied Agile or Dev or anything like that, or just been in any workshop talking about improving efficiency, has heard people, process, and technology. I'd like to argue they're all great, but it matters where you are in what I'd like to call the adaptive cycle. Meaning, I am kind of a dork, so I looked into ecology, and there's something about resilient systems out there. Basically, there is a formula they follow in innovation. Different times, different aspects are more important. If you look at the front loop, that's where we've been for a long time in law. Baby steps, automating bait stamping, making it a little faster to look at documents, slightly improving this, slightly improving that, all incremental. Maybe it's people optimization. But we're hitting the top of that curve. I like to say I feel like I'm on the top of a roller coaster. Have you ever had that moment where you're sitting in your little chair and you feel it going up and it's like click, you're like 10 feet from the top, click, click, and you feel it like your stomach's about to drop, you're about to go over the edge, something big and dynamic is about to happen? That's where we are in legal technology. And why do I say that? A couple of reasons. One, the external pressures of data. Big, messy, nasty. It's too expensive. It's too burdensome. We've tried to fix it with the amendments of the federal rules. It's not enough. Things are changing. Everything is moving. And then if you look at VC, they've been researching this for a while. I probably had 80 calls my last year at Gibson Dunn from VC and private equity. And they're researching, where's a fertile green area for me to invest? I was talking with a friend at a conference with 350 of my peers 2 days ago, and he tracks this stuff, and he said, you know, Clio, who I think is amazing, has 250 million. That's the biggest single injection of legal tech investment in the last, really ever. But if you take a step back and you look at legal tech more broadly, you look at Zoom, you look at my company, we've got 135 million, the number's closer to 2.2 billion. Hedge funds, VCs, private equity, they're not dumb. They're investing because there's an opportunity and there's some dynamic change happening. And what does this mean for you? Well, I said that. Every industrial revolution has been painful. There was I probably should know his name, but there was an AI wonk who said that AI is like electricity was a century ago. And I would say, to a degree, yes, but maybe it's more like when we had automation on building cars. There's displacement, there's change, there's a lot of discomfort and uncertainty. I've been doing stuff the same way my entire career, and you want me to change. But change you have to. You don't want to be a buggy whip maker in an era of Model Ts, much like you don't want to be a lawyer who thinks they can close the door in their office, head down, look at just paper, and still compete with peers who are embracing technology. Law firms are the same way. They can't keep doing things exactly how they've been doing them, or they will not be competitive. Clients are much savvier. They are investigating much more thoroughly. I answered hundreds of RFPs where it's how are you innovating, what AI are you using, how are you creating more efficiency? If I was to compare you, Latham, to Skadden, how are you different? And don't tell me it's just because you have X attorney or Y attorney, that's great, it's not good enough. As an attorney, you can differentiate yourself. You can fast track yourself to partner by understanding technology. We had a very young head of our technology operation, but also he was on the executive committee. He was younger than me, and he got there because he wasn't coding. He understood technology, he could speak the language of technology. He was driving innovation by at least having the conversation, and you as an attorney can do that too. The reality is there is a wealth of opportunity that hasn't been here in decades. A wealth of opportunity to do something different. When I went to law school, I read a lot about Blackacre, a lot about black letter law. It was a lot of stuff that was determined by dead guys that I didn't know and I really didn't care about. But now, we've got folks like Judge Peck. 4 or 5 years ago, he fundamentally changed how people emerge with or engage with technology. In 2006, we went from saying, hey, email, schmeemail doesn't really matter to no, electronic evidence matters. There's a fundamental shift in law happening today, and you are on the tip of the spear. Be excited. It's scary, it's dynamic, and your obligation is changing. Nice to have tech understanding isn't going to cut it anymore. We've got different model rules coming out from the ABA. We've got different state level things basically saying, you've got to be technically competent. Doesn't mean you have to code, but does mean you need to know how to ask the right questions, know when to bring in the right resources. Ignorance won't cut it. There have been a lot of cases, and you guys go to law school, I won't read the whole letter of black letter law, but there have been a lot of cases where people are sanctioned millions of dollars, where perhaps there's an adverse inference, where perhaps and entire cases dismissed because of mishandling of data. Not knowing I should have collected those tapes, not knowing I should have used this sort of tool, it's got a big impact. And so you need to be willing to go out there to talk with me, talk with any of the people in this room talking on panels, talk with your peers. If you're at an organization, talk with the IT guy, talk with the discovery guy, reach out, don't operate in a bubble, because the reality is you need to know enough to be relevant. Now, a lot of attorneys are afraid. Does this mean I'm going to be replaced? At the end of the day, is the task that I've gone to law school for, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars for, going to be replaced by an algorithm that can do it better, faster, cheaper than me? Sort of. Jobs aren't going away. How we do them is changing. The easy pyramid structure of a lot of law firms where there's a lot of billable, low-hanging, repetitive work is changing. As attorneys, tasks like maybe making a basic NDA or very low-level doc review, stuff that was training wheels, maybe won't be there anymore. So if you want to remain relevant, if you want to remain sticky, if you want to remain someone who is going to quickly move up the ladder, and let's be real, no one would be in this room if that wasn't what you wanted, you need to understand technology enough to engage with it, to capitalize on it. Because there's a lot of opportunity coming from it. There'll be more jobs, different jobs, more exciting jobs, faster ways up the ladder that get you out of lockstep that are technology optimized and technology related. You just have to know enough to ask. Now I've got a question, I like asking this. How many in the room are using AI? Do you have Facebook? Suggested friends? What about Amazon? Do you have suggested items on Amazon? Spotify, Pandora. Every single one of us who has a cell phone, the location beacons that are identifying where you are for Google Maps are AI. AI is in everything we do every day at our fingertips, and we don't even think about it, and my hope and wish for the future is the exact same thing in legal technology. That these great insights bubbling up for you are going to be just there. It's not going to be, oh, I've got to think about this complex process, I've got to go out of my comfort zone, I've got to figure out how to embrace technology. No, it's going to be the tool that I use that looks a little bit like Outlook to look at documents, already has a built-in algorithm in the back end, and that somehow every decision I make is amplified and I'm getting better insights. Think of technology that way. It doesn't have to be hard and scary. You just have to know where it is. You just have to embrace it. And we, as technology providers, have to make it more user-friendly for you as an attorney. Now, this is something I like to talk about a lot. People think of AI. Oh, robots are coming, they're replacing us. Good Lord, what are we going to do? That's an old way of thinking about it, 60, 70 years old. The newer way of thinking about it is more augmented intelligence. We're trying to amplify each decision you make. We're trying to make you smarter before you make a decision. We're trying to make it faster, easier, more painless for you to get to the act and the art of being an attorney. And so if you think of technology in that way, if you look at it more as repetitive, repeatable tasks that I don't really want to do anyway, freeing me up as a practitioner to do what I went to law school for, to think creatively, to find solutions, to issue spot, to solve problems, to be the whole, not the drill, suddenly it becomes a lot more exciting. We're not being replaced, we're being put back where we should have been before data disrupted the whole process and made discovering what the heck happened burdensome, costly, unwieldy. And I'm excited about it. There's a lot of tools today that are out there. I've talked about a couple of them, but big one, it would be using machine learning to get more relevant information first. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But there's visualization, there's social network analysis, and no, that is not Facebook. That is who talked with who, with what frequency, so I can figure out who I want to have my priority custodians be, so that I can figure out narrow sets of time, so that I can whittle down the universe of data. There's visualization. There's natural language processing. There's machine learning that is applied for linguistics. All of these things are part of your toolkit as an attorney. Think of it this way. It would be like going to law school and not learning about torts, to not understand technology, because you're going to use it so pervasively throughout your practice. A carpenter wouldn't go and say, oh, you know, love hammers, but screwdrivers, forget that. It would limit your ability to be a practitioner. Think of technology that way. It's not replacing you. It's not adversarial. It's not, do I want it or not? It's, okay, this is part of my suite of tools that helps me be better, that helps me separate myself from the crowd, that helps me make it faster, farther, quicker, make more money, do more good, whatever your what's in it for you is, why you're in law school, and it's different for every one of you, tech will enable you to do that. So one thing I had talked about is kind of continual active learning. It's what I find really sexy. But basically, think of like your Netflix queue. My niece comes over, she's 3, she picks Teletubbies. Does it ruin my Netflix queue forever? No, messes it up for 1 or 2 selections. The new algorithms out there are kind of like that. From document 1, you start building insights. You start getting relevant information. Each successive choice you make, and it's easy. It's literally like clicking on emails in your Outlook. So it's not scary, it's not threatening. Each successive choice you make bubbles up more relevant information, allowing you as an attorney to have all those who, what, when, where, why, so you can start building your stories sooner. If you, as an attorney, are dealing with someone going the old way, and you are armed at your meet and confer with, I know these dates are really concerning, I know these people are in scope, but hey, they wanted 50 people, it was going to cost me $5 million. Knowing what's relevant, knowing what's in your universe of data beforehand could save you millions of dollars, could save your client millions of dollars, could also arm you to settle sooner, could arm you talking with a regulator to pivot. These tools are exciting. They reduce the amount of time it takes to start doing what you like to do. No one, and I mean no one, goes to law school because they're like, relational databases and lambda calculus, ooh, love that. I mean, if you do, then I want to talk to you, I want to hire you, I want to poach you, but most of us don't, right? We want to do the art of law. And for a lot of early attorneys, for a long time, that wasn't happening. You were going through and you were clicking relevant, non-relevant, issue, 1, 2, or 3, boring, boring, boring. Very important stuff, but not very exciting. My thought on the future of this augmented intelligence, this amplified decision-making, is that as attorneys, as young attorneys, you're going to get your fingers in the more interesting stuff sooner. And if you know how to use technology, you can become that right-hand person for perhaps someone of a different generation, not that I would ever hint at that, who is not as comfortable with technology, but who wants a local person, a resource, a young, bright, hungry person to help them navigate it. It's a really quick way to become very ingratiated in big law, small law, corporations. Taking the jump's important. And this is the first step. I mean, frankly, the fact that each of you are either on the camera or are here means you've seen the correlation between law and technology. The velocity of change is not going anywhere. The volume of data is blowing up. If you want to be a good practitioner, you need to understand it, capitalize on it, and the fact that you're here is that first step. That's why I said earlier, this room is the future of law. And it's not because we're at Harvard, it's because we see that tip of the spear, that nexus. Law's really behind the curve compared to retail and finance and every other industry out there. The machine learning I'm talking about was written about in 1956. The guys are probably dead. Neural networking, which I think is very sexy, was first thought of before there were computers. All of this is very tested, very proven, very safe technology. It's not new and unknown. In fact, every one of your clients, if you're going to a law firm, is using this technology. If you read Outliers, Target is using advanced predictive analytics to identify what ads to send you. Google and all of their different ad organizations are using very advanced predictive analytics to figure out how to target you, whether you like it or not. Law is catching up. And the ones who are going to be relevant, pivotal, and dynamic and changing law as it continues to change in relation and in response to its corporate clients are the folks that see that nexus. And it's not just because I'm in it. I mean, I love that I'm in it, so maybe I think it's a little more important, but the reality is you have to remain relevant and you have to stay tip of spear. And how do you do it? I mean, I think it's challenging for new attorneys. We're dropping the ball. Law school is not doing what you need. It is not helping you with the business, the practice of doing law. It's teaching you the theory, it's teaching you the logic, it's teaching you how to think like an attorney, but not how to do it, not the pragmatic, how do I get from A to Z? So what do you do? I mean, I think it comes down to a couple things. Talk with folks like us. Don't be afraid. We are all dorks. We all love talking. It's all of our passion projects. There's a knowledge gap, and I want to help fill it. Read the industry periodicals. Research. Be curious. Be hungry. You didn't end up at Harvard because you were complacent. You didn't end up in law because you were easily settled with the first answer you got. You need to keep digging. And you need to be willing to reach out and go where you're not comfortable. A lot of folks like myself maybe decided math and science is great, I'm really good at it, but I don't want to be a doctor. I decided at 12 because if I mess up, someone dies, but if I'm an attorney, I can appeal. But every day from 12 on, I was pivoting further and further away from science, tech, and math. I like doing what I'm good at. I had to make a choice to pivot back to what I wasn't so good at. I studied existential philosophy. I'm not a technologist. But I had to be curious, and I had to be hungry, and I had to put myself in uncomfortable positions to develop that muscle, develop that skill. And you can do it too. It's not that hard. The technology that's out there isn't meant to replace you. It's going to amplify you. Think like Tony Stark. He's not in there, I mean, maybe he's coding, I don't know, but he's got all this technology around him that makes him have better decisions, makes him superpower, that gives him a capability far beyond what he would have as a mere man. That is how technology is being designed today, if you take advantage of it. All right, well, thank you guys so much. Reach out to me, add me, bug me with questions. I love this stuff.